He was not a failure. In fact, most people thought he was successful. He had a good education. He had skills. He had experience. Yet deep inside, something felt wrong. Every morning, he woke up and followed the same routine. Same road. Same office. Same work. Same thoughts. Nothing surprised him anymore. He noticed something strange about himself. He was learning, but not growing. He read books, but felt no excitement. He watched videos, but learned nothing new. He listened to experts, but his mind was already full of answers. Slowly, without knowing it, he had lost curiosity. One evening, after a long day, he sat alone in a quiet cafe. The noise around him faded. He stared at his coffee and asked himself a simple question. Why do I feel stuck when I know so much? That question stayed with him. A few days later, an old friend sent him a short message. There is an old Japanese teacher in the city. He teaches something strange. Not knowledge, but mindset. He almost ignored the message. He thought, I don't need another teacher. I already know enough. But something inside him moved. A small voice. A forgotten feeling. Curiosity. That evening, he decided to go. The place was simple. No signboard. No crowd. Just a small wooden room and the smell of tea. Inside sat an old man. The teacher did not ask his name. He did not ask about his education or success. He only looked at him and asked one question. Do you still have a beginner's mind? The man smiled politely. Beginner? He was far from a beginner. I am experienced, he replied. I have learned many things. The teacher poured tea slowly and said calmly. That is exactly the problem. The man felt uncomfortable. The teacher continued. In Japan, we call it Shoshin. It means beginner's mind. A mind that is open, empty, and curious. The man crossed his arms. How can a beginner teach someone like me? He asked. The teacher smiled gently. When the cup is full, he said. No tea can enter. The words felt simple. But they hit deep. The teacher gave him a small wooden box. Take this with you, he said. For 7 days. Every day, open it once and follow what it says. The man looked confused. What if it is useless? He asked. The teacher replied. Then you lose nothing. But if it works, you gain everything. He took the box and left. That night, at home, he opened the box. Inside was a small paper slip. Only one sentence was written. Tomorrow, ask one question without trying to look smart. He laughed. This was it. This was the teaching. The next day at work, he tried. In a meeting, instead of explaining, he asked. Why do we do it this way? The room went quiet. Someone answered honestly. Someone else added a new idea. For the first time in years, he listened without preparing a reply. Something felt different. Day 2. He opened the box again. Ask a child a serious question. That evening, he spoke to a young boy in the park. He asked, what do you want to learn? The boy replied quickly. Everything. The man smiled. He realized something painful. Once, he also wanted to learn everything. Day 3. Admit one thing you don't know. At work, he said. I don't know the best solution. Can someone help? No one laughed. Instead, people spoke freely. Ideas flowed. The weight on his chest became lighter. By day 7, something had changed. He was asking more. Listening more. Judging less. He felt alive. He returned to the teacher. I feel strange, he said. I know less, but I feel wiser. The teacher nodded. You are emptying your cup, he said. Then the teacher asked him a hard question. If you stay a beginner, are you ready to look foolish again? The man stayed silent. He had spent years protecting his image, his knowledge, his ego. The teacher placed another paper slip in the box. This is your next lesson, he said. But it will be harder. The man opened it. It said, teach something you don't fully understand. His heart beat faster. Teach, without being sure. That felt dangerous. That felt scary. As he walked home, doubt filled his mind. What if people judge him? What if he fails? What if he looks weak? But another thought followed. What if this is the door to real learning? He looked at the wooden box in his hand. For the first time, he did not see it as a test. He saw it as an invitation. An invitation to begin again. That night, he placed the box beside his bed. He knew one thing for sure. His life was about to change. But the real challenge had not even started yet. Because learning like a beginner is easy. Living like one is not. The wooden box felt heavier now. Not because it gained weight. But because the message inside scared him. Teach something you don't fully understand. He read the line again and again. Teach, without full knowledge. Without confidence. Without control. For years, he had built his life on one rule. Never look foolish. People respected him because he had answers. Because he spoke with confidence. Because he appeared sure. But this lesson asked him to do the opposite. It asked him to stand in front of others. And admit uncertainty. That night, he did not sleep well. His mind was full of fear. The next morning, he decided to try something small. He did not choose a big stage. He did not choose experts. He chose a small group. A few colleagues. A simple topic. Something he partly knew. He stood in front of them and said, today, I want to share something I am still learning. The words felt strange in his mouth. Some people looked surprised. Some smiled politely. He started explaining. Halfway through, someone raised a hand. That part is not correct, the person said. There is another way. Silence filled the room. His face became warm. His heart started beating fast. This was the moment he always avoided. Mistake. Exposure. Weakness. For a second, he wanted to defend himself. But then he remembered the teacher's words. Empty the cup. He took a breath and said something new. You're right. I didn't know that. Can you explain more? The room changed. People leaned forward. Ideas started flowing. The session turned into a discussion. He was no longer the expert. He was a learner among learners. And strangely, it felt good. That evening, he opened the wooden box again. Another slip. Ask why 5 times today. It sounded easy. But it was not. Every why made people uncomfortable. Why do we work this way? Why do we believe this? Why do we fear change? Some people got annoyed. Some avoided answering. But some opened up. He noticed a pattern. Most people stop asking why. Because they are afraid of looking simple. On the 3rd day, the lesson became harder. The slip said. Do one thing badly. On purpose. He laughed in disbelief. Why would anyone do that? But he tried. He attempted a new skill he had never learned before. He failed. Publicly. People noticed. Someone laughed. His chest tightened. That night, he felt small. He almost quit. He returned to the teacher. "I don't think this path is for me," he said. "I am losing respect." The teacher listened quietly. Then he said, "When you stop trying to look smart, you start becoming wise." The man felt angry. "Pain is not wisdom," he replied. The teacher nodded. "No," he said. "But pain opens the door to learning." The teacher told him a story. "In Japan," he said, "the best masters practice basics every day. They bow like beginners. They train like students. Because the moment you think you know, you stop growing." The man stayed silent. He realized something painful. His biggest fear was not failure. It was being seen as ordinary. The next slip waited in the box. Spend one full day listening more than speaking. That day changed him. He noticed things he never noticed before. People around him had ideas, stories, pain, wisdom. But no one listened. He had been too busy speaking. Too busy proving. At night, he wrote in his notebook. "I don't need to be the smartest person. I need to be the most curious." The words felt light. On the seventh day, the final slip appeared. It was different. Short. Sharp. "Give up one skill you are proud of, for 7 days." His hands froze. That skill was part of his identity. It gave him confidence, status, safety. Without it, who was he? Fear returned. But deeper than fear, a question appeared. Am I brave enough to be empty? He went back to the teacher one last time. "What happens if I let go?" he asked. The teacher smiled. "You will not lose yourself," he said. "You will meet yourself." The man looked at the wooden box. For the first time, he understood. Shoshin was not about learning more. It was about unlearning fear. Unlearning ego. Unlearning the need to be perfect. That night, he made a decision. He placed the box on the table. He placed his pride beside it. And he chose the beginner's path. Because real learning begins when the ego becomes quiet. The decision was made. But the fear did not leave. The wooden box sat quietly on his table. Yet it felt louder than any voice. Give up one skill you are proud of, for 7 days. He knew exactly which skill it was. It was the one people praised. The one that gave him respect. The one that made him feel important. Without it, he felt empty. But Shoshin demanded emptiness. The next morning, he stopped using that skill. The world did not stop. But inside him, something shook. The first day was painful. People expected him to step forward. They waited for his expertise. He stayed silent. Confusion filled the room. Someone else spoke instead. He felt invisible. At night, he asked himself, "If I am not useful, am I still valuable?" The question hurt. The second day was worse. Someone replaced him. Not perfectly. But good enough. A sharp feeling rose in his chest. Jealousy. For years, he believed his value came from being needed. Now, he was not needed. And he did not know who he was without that role. On the third day, he felt lost. He walked through the city with no direction. Without his skill, time felt slow. He noticed small things. Birds on wires. Footsteps on stone. His own breathing. Things he had ignored for years. For the first time, his mind was quiet. That afternoon, he met a young apprentice. The boy was learning the same field. Clumsy. Curious. Unashamed of mistakes. The boy asked many questions. Simple questions. Questions he once asked long ago. He answered carefully, without showing pride. The boy smiled and said, "I like how you explain. You don't make me feel small." Those words stayed with him. On the fourth day, doubt returned. What if I never get my skill back? What if I lose my place forever? He returned to the teacher. The teacher listened and said, "When you hold too tightly, you cannot receive." The man finally understood. He had been gripping his identity with fear. The fifth day brought temptation. A problem appeared. Everyone looked at him. This was his moment. He could solve it easily. His hands moved, then stopped. He stepped back. Others struggled. They learned. The solution came slower. But it came together. He smiled quietly. That night, he wrote, "Learning is not about being needed. It is about becoming open." On the sixth day, peace arrived. He felt lighter. Without the pressure to perform. He listened deeper. He asked better questions. He saw patterns he missed before. His mind felt wide. Empty. Alive. On the final day, he returned to the teacher. "I feel smaller," he said. "But also, free." The teacher nodded. "You removed the armor," he said. "Now learning can touch you." The teacher placed one last note in the box. It said, "Teach again, but teach curiosity, not answers." The man stood in front of others once more. This time, he did not prepare slides. He asked questions. He invited mistakes. He welcomed silence. The room felt different. People felt safe. Learning flowed naturally. As he walked home, he realized something important. He did not lose his skill. He lost his fear. He did not become less. He became open. That night, he placed the wooden box away. Not because he was done. But because Shoshin now lived inside him. Because the deepest learning begins when identity no longer controls the mind. The wooden box was no longer on his table. Not because the journey was over. But because the lesson had moved inside him. He no longer needed written slips. Shoshin was now a voice in his mind. A quiet voice that asked questions. Instead of giving answers. Life did not become easier. In fact, it became more challenging. The world around him expected certainty. People wanted clear opinions. Fast answers. Strong confidence. But his mind was different now. He paused before speaking. He listened longer. He asked simple questions. Some people liked it. Others did not. At work, someone said, "Why are you so unsure lately?" The words felt sharp. He realized something important. The world respects confidence. But it rarely understands curiosity. To live with a beginner's mind meant standing alone at times. One day, a big decision appeared. A project that needed quick action. People turned to him. They expected leadership. Old habits pulled him back. Speak fast. Decide quickly. Look strong. But Shoshin whispered. Slow down. He asked the team to share ideas first. Some felt annoyed. Some felt relieved. New ideas appeared. Better ideas. The decision took longer. But the result was stronger. That night, doubt returned. What if curiosity makes me weak? What if I lose my place? He went for a long walk. The city lights blurred. His mind felt heavy. Then he remembered the teacher's words. When the mind is empty, it can hold everything. The next morning, he met a woman on a train. She was reading a book upside down. He almost smiled. But instead he asked. Why are you reading like that? She laughed. I am not reading, she said. I am learning to see differently. That small moment stayed with him. Beginner's mind was everywhere. Days passed. He practiced Shoshin in small ways. He asked new questions at old places. He listened to people he once ignored. He learned from mistakes without shame. But the hardest test was still waiting. A public failure came. Something went wrong in front of many people. Old fear returned. People whispered. He felt exposed. The old him would defend. Explain. Blame. Instead, he said. I don't know yet. But I am ready to learn. Silence followed. Then respect. Not from everyone. But from the right ones. That evening, he received a message. The teacher wanted to see him. They met at the same quiet place. The teacher looked at him carefully. Are you ready for the final truth? He asked. The man nodded. The teacher said. Beginner's mind is not comfort. It is courage. The word settled deep. The teacher continued. The world rewards certainty. But growth lives in questions. You must choose which life you want. The man finally understood. Shoshin was not a phase. It was a way of living. He returned home and wrote one sentence. I choose curiosity over comfort. The next day, he shared his journey with others. Not as a master. But as a learner. People listened. Some felt inspired. Some felt uncomfortable. That was okay. He noticed something beautiful. The more he practiced beginner's mind, the more others felt free to learn. Mistakes became normal. Questions became welcome. Learning became alive. One evening, he opened the wooden box again. Inside was nothing. No paper. No words. Only emptiness. He smiled. The final lesson was clear. The box was empty. Because his mind was ready. Because true mastery is never leaving the beginner behind. The journey did not end. It became a way of life. The man no longer searched for lessons. Lessons found him. Every day. Every moment. Because his mind was open. He woke up one morning with a strange feeling. Peace. Not the peace of knowing everything. But the peace of not needing to. He realized something important. The beginner's mind was not about being new. It was about being present. At work, people noticed the change. He was calm. Focused. Curious. When problems appeared, he did not panic. He asked better questions. When mistakes happened, he did not hide. He learned openly. Slowly, others followed. Learning became normal. Failure became safe. One day, a young person approached him. How do you stay so open? The person asked. He smiled and said. I don't protect my knowledge. I protect my curiosity. The words felt simple. But they carried truth. He returned to the quiet place one last time. The teacher was there. Older. Calmer. The man bowed gently. I think I understand now, he said. The teacher poured tea. This cup, he said, is never full. They sat in silence. The teacher spoke again. Many people ask me for the secret of learning. They want methods. Steps. Shortcuts. The man listened. But the secret, the teacher continued, is a choice. The man looked up. A choice to begin again every day. The teacher asked one final question. If you lose everything you know tomorrow, will you still be okay? The man smiled. Yes, he replied. Because I know how to learn. The teacher nodded. That was the answer. As the man walked away, he felt light. Not because he had answers, but because he trusted the process. He trusted curiosity. Years passed. He grew older. But his mind stayed young. He learned new skills slowly. He listened deeply. He stayed humble. People came to him for advice. He never called himself a master. He called himself a student. One evening, he found the wooden box again. Dust covered it. He opened it. It was empty. But this time, he understood. The box was never meant to be filled. It was meant to remind him. To stay empty. He shared the Shoshin philosophy with others. Not as a rule. Not as a system. But as a story. A story of letting go. A story of beginning again. He ended every talk with one sentence. Today, be brave enough to be a beginner. And those who listened felt something move inside them. A small spark. The same spark he felt on the first day. Because infinite learning does not come from knowing more. It comes from never closing the mind. Final message to the audience, narration style. If you feel stuck. If learning feels heavy. If life feels repetitive. Try one thing. Begin again. Ask one simple question tomorrow. Admit one thing you don't know. Listen without planning your reply. That is Shoshin. And that is the Japanese secret to infinite learning.